236. Grim Fairy Tales. Chalcedon Report number 26, November the 1st, 1967. Most people today believe in fairy tales. Jesus said, "Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles?" Matthew chapter 7, verse 16. As St. Paul stated it, "Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. People who believe in fairy tales deny this. A student can neglect his studies and somehow get a good grade. A man or nation can spend more than they take in and somehow remain solvent. The believer in fairy tales expects reality to match his dreams without any effort or work on his part. As a nation, we have been subsidizing evil, improvidence, criminality, and anti-Christian and anti-American thinking and activity for a generation. We have been sowing a storm. Can we reap anything but a storm? We have been subsidizing evil and penalizing good. Can we expect anything but evil to result? In his study, Grover Cleveland, 1948, Alan Nevins observed, "Character is not made overnight. When it appears in transcendent degree, it is usually the product of generations of disciplined ancestry or a stern environment, or both." The old Puritan discipline left a long and powerful influence on the American character. The humanistic discipline of state-supported education is now making itself felt in American life. Our politics, the hippies, the erosion of character and morality, all these things and more we are reaping because we sowed for it. In brief, we have been sowing for revolution and for economic disaster, and we are on the verge of reaping both. In the economic sphere, we're asking for disaster. A hard money policy has been abandoned, and inflation is increasing. There is no likelihood that the paper money policy will be altered by anything save disaster. The socialist answer to every problem is appropriations and controls. The appropriations buy votes and increasingly make more and more of the people parasites living off the rest. Don Bell, in his excellent newsletter, October the 20th, 1967, calls attention to the fact that the number of persons drawing payer benefits of some kind from the federal government, state, local and private assistance not included, is 102,900,000. But granted that in many cases the benefits may be small, and millions of people are actually earning what they get, as the military on active duty, but the figures remain. Over half the people in the United States are drawing payer benefits from the federal government. About 40 million persons receive regular monthly payments from federal funds. This figure does not include businesses, farmers, and others receiving checks on an irregular or occasional basis. Most of these people will not vote an end to their paychecks. They will only vote more socialism. Economically, our future offers us basically two choices. First, we can have a depression, but only accidentally, because while a depression is the easier way out, it is politically suicidal in that it loses votes. If we fall into a depression, the political answer to it will be more controls. Second, we can have a runaway inflation, which means runaway controls also, culminating in social chaos and anarchy. Religiously, we see the churches today serving the cause of revolution. The gospel they preach is anti-Christian, and their morality is deliberate immorality. Christ came to free men from guilt, but the "now" gospel is designed to make us feel guilty for the sins of others and for the backwardness of other peoples and races. Thus, Harvey G. Cox of the Harvard Divinity School wrote in the June 1967 Renewal magazine on Penance from Piety to Politics, Reparations as a Religious and Political Issue. According to Cox, we must pay reparations to the Negro people, among others. This debt is not a charitable contribution, but an honest debt, and the majority group in America remain the debtor group. Only when the relationships between the two groups are put on this basis of legal right and wrong, and of just reparation, do we escape the unconscious condescension which so often distorts even the most well-intentioned individual in this delicate area. In other words, white America must pay a heavy tax penalty for some time to come because of its initiative and superiority. Earlier this year, the Stanford Presbyterian theologian Dr. Robert McVie Brown declared, "Not only is Christendom gone, but in its place is revolution. The question is not whether the revolution will succeed, but how much bloodshed there will have to be before a more equitable balance has been reached between rich and poor." The Presbyterian Journal, June the 7th, 1967. Brown is for revolution, and his gospel is revolution. The Jesuit president of the University of Santa Clara, the Very Reverend Patrick A. Donoghue, has expressed his hatred of the John Birch Society, which has killed no one and works to restore constitutionalism, and his preference for Marxism, which has killed millions of Christians. For myself, Birchism and its multiple variants are more destructive to human freedom than the crudest form of Marxism. A Jesuit's barrage at alumni, Oakland, California, Tribune, October the 25th, 1967, page 2. If these men are clearly wrong, then how much more wrong are those who stay in these churches and help subsidize and support anti-Christianity by their presence and their gifts? In education, the situation is no better. When an anti-war teach-in at UCLA was poorly attended, with only 20 students turning out to hear 4 black speakers, Professor Donald Kalish, chairman of the sponsoring University Committee on Vietnam at UCLA, declared, "When the intellectual and middle-class community refuse to even listen to spokesmen from our ghettos, I think it is sufficient grounds to burn our city down, and I might even join them." Anti-Vietnam War Teaching Cold Failure, Los Angeles Times, October the 12th, 1967, Part 3, page 18. Both here and abroad, student groups call for guerrilla warfare. John Chamberlain, SDS Impulses Span the Sea, Los Angeles Herald Examiner, September the 22nd, 1967, page B2. At Berkeley High School, a patriotic program, Up With People, was banned because it deals with images rather than realities and sets standards of morality, of right and wrong, good and bad, according to a faculty-student committee. Noel Lieberman, High School at Berkeley Bar Singers, Oakland Tribune, September the 27th, 1967, page 1. Nothing indicates more clearly what our statist education has become than this. Standards of morality, of right and wrong, good and bad, are subversive to it. Meanwhile, sex education is becoming increasingly important to schools whose pupils are less and less able to read well. A popular teaching aid is a series of 35 slides dealing with the reproduction of flowers, chickens, dogs, and human beings. The anatomy and physiology of reproductive organs are shown in brightly coloured representation designed to capture children's attention. A simply written text labels everything with its proper name, as chickens and dogs are shown copulating. An optional end slide shows a man and woman in bed, covered to illustrate human intercourse. Neil Ullman, The Facts of Life, Wall Street Journal, September the 19th, 1967, page 1. We are told that, very shortly, special private classes will be established to relieve parents of the responsibility of instructing their own children. Initially, there will be the usual outraged hue and cry when movies are used to demonstrate positions, but the courts will vindicate, academic freedom, and enlarge our freedom. H.S. Cam, Had Any Lately, in Cavalcade, November 1967, page 17. This is, of course, part and parcel of the attack on privacy. A psychologist has said, the closed door in most households is not so much a guardian of privacy as a symptom of prudery, a barrier between the generations, an obstacle to fluent sex education, a reinforcement of guilt and repression. Chester C. Bennett, Boston University, What Price Privacy? American Psychologist, 22, number 5, May 1967. Is it any wonder that the very halls of many schools today must be patrolled not only by teachers, but sometimes by the police as well? Meanwhile, the police are under attack. A testing program has been set up to cull out undesired persons. Typical questions include statements like this: I believe in the second coming of Christ. Guy Halverson, Culling All Police, Wall Street Journal, October the 18th, 1967, page 16. In many cities, police are forbidden to fire on looters or rioters. My cops forbidden to fire at looters, Santa Ana, California, Register, August 21st, 1967, page C5. See also George Lardner Jr., Winstadt Riot Order, Guard Chief Recalls. Los Angeles Times, August 26th, 1967, Part 1, page 12. A bill proposed in California would limit the right of the police to use their weapons even further. Solons disagree on when cop can use gun. Santa Ana, California, Register, October the 20th, 1967, page A8. Similar legislation is proposed elsewhere. When we turn to the political sphere, the picture is no less grim. Barron's Weekly, on August the 28th, 1967, wrote on Guerrilla Politics, an apt title in that contemporary politics, like guerrilla warfare, is action aimed at the destruction of the existing social order. On July the 31st, 1967, the leading article in Barron's told its story in the title, Poverty Warriors, the riots are subsidized as well as organized. Story after story reports on these subsidies to criminal and hoodlums. Robert S. Allen and Paul Scott, Negro gang leaders to get federal jobs, cited in the Oakland Tribune, August 11th, 1967, page 22, as well as subsidies to revolutionists. Violence pays, quote, liberation, end quote, school told. Santa Ana Register, August 24th, 1967, page B7. The federal government today is actively and deliberately subsidizing revolutionists in the name of alleviating social distress. Some of this is clearly due to liberal soft-headedness, to the belief that money will save men. But not all the bureaucrats involved are fuzzy-minded liberals. Many are dedicated socialists and social revolutionaries. We cannot understand what is happening around us unless we see the black revolutionists, the hippies, the student radicals and others who receive federal aid in one form or another as the red guards of the establishment called upon to break down the freedom of the people. Mao Zedong called on the Red Guard to break down all opposition in supposedly spontaneous demonstrations. It is easy to understand the Chinese Red Guards from a distance, but we cannot understand our American subsidized revolutionists as another Red Guard until we see them as an instrument being used to destroy the old, free America. The American Red Guard will be used to destroy the cities, cripple the police, infringe on our liberties, and then, in the name of controlling the Red Guard, the establishment will pass legislation to control its subsidized rioters and agitators, and to control us. An angry populace will demand, quote, riot control, end quote, and although existing laws provide more than enough means for the police to control riots, the riots will be permitted to continue until, quote, emergency, end quote, legislation can be rushed through on demand and all our liberties be confiscated in order to, quote, control, end quote, the American Red Guard. The Red Guard will be ruthlessly killed off, if need be, to please the people, but their liberties will also be killed off. In all of this, the major enemy is Christianity and Christian law and order, Christian faith and Christian morality. As Dr. Lars Olderstam, MD, has written in The Erotic Minorities, to be chaste is no longer praiseworthy. Rather, it is something unnatural and therefore almost intolerable. Page 24. For Dr. Olderstam, we need a sexual Bill of Rights, which will not only permit liberty to homosexuality, incest, exhibitionism, pedophilia, solaromania, algolagnia, scopophilia, and every other kind of perversion and pervert, but will also provide state subsidies for these people to compensate for their, quote, persecution, end quote, by Christians. Here again, the issue is the same, a subsidy for evil. Having subsidized evil so long, how can we help but reap a harvest of evil? It would be possible to write several volumes on the evidences of subsidies to evil, to revolution, to anti-American activities, to laziness, to a variety of persons and activities which need legal control rather than legal subsidization. The important question is this: why is evil subsidized? The answer to this question is the great dividing line. The Greek and pagan view, the anti-Christian view, is that man's problem is a failure of knowledge. If man does wrong, it is because of inadequate, insufficient, or incorrect knowledge. The answer, therefore, is re-education. This is, of course, the answer of Marxism and Fabian socialism. Re-education of people out of Christianity, or if they are too old for re-education, quote, purge, end quote, them, or kill them off. The anti-Christian puts his hope, therefore, in knowledge, in education, and whether he be of the radical or of the conservative variety, he plans to save mankind by education. The Christian view is that man's problem is not a lack of facts, but a hatred of godly knowledge. Man's problem is sin, a corrupt and depraved will and mind, a total unwillingness to do other than suppress the truth. Knowledge cannot save man. Only Christ can. The redeemed man will then grow in grace and therefore seek knowledge in order to serve and glorify God more ably. In terms of this, let us examine the question, why is evil subsidized? It is not subsidized out of ignorance, out of any lack of knowledge as to its meaning. President Johnson and Vice President Humphrey have both sounded the call to world revolution in full knowledge of what revolution means. Evil is subsidized to destroy the good, to destroy Christianity and its law order. The kind of planning for destruction varies from group to group. Some revolutionists plan in terms of mass burning, looting, raping, killing, and total destruction. Some plan in terms of totalitarian controls and ruthlessness only towards troublemakers. In either case, the goal is, whether directly or slowly, total destruction of Christian civilization. Some have called for, as I pointed out in This Independent Republic, Chapter 9, a long period of chaos and revolution, of anarchy, racial amalgamation, and the total destruction of civilization. Times like these, it is well to remember the words of an ancient Hebrew, Jesus or Joshua ben Sirach, who wrote, "They that fear the Lord will not disobey his word, and they that love him will keep his ways. They that fear the Lord will seek that which is well-pleasing unto him, and they that love him shall be filled with the law. They that fear the Lord will prepare their hearts and humble their souls in his sight, saying, We will fall into the hands of the Lord, and not into the hands of men. For as his majesty is, so is his mercy." Don Bell reports for October the 27th, 1967, stated briefly what this writer has said repeatedly at great length. "As a nation, we have become too filthy to recover. We must reconstruct. Our tax dollars are subsidizing evil. While there is still time, our free dollars had better subsidize Christian reconstruction. Rebuild or perish." Lot's wife turned back longingly to the old familiar places and perished with Sodom. Those who try to save the old forms, the old churches, the public schools, the old and captured citadels, will go down with them. The days ahead are days of death and of reconstruction. Our tax dollars are already subsidizing revolution and an American Red Guard, and we are getting our money's worth there. As Clark H. Pinnock observed in Set Forth Your Case, 1967, one of the best-kept secrets from the public at large in the 20th century has been the death of hope and the loss of the human. We are all involved by compulsory taxation in the subsidy of evil and the death of hope, as well as the loss of the human. But the question remains, to what extent are we using our remaining freedom for the Lord?